Hi, and welcome back to the ICRS 2015 here in Orlando. I ran into my good friend Robert.
Yes, I bumped into you upstairs, and now we're downstairs.
And I snagged him. I said, "You got to come by."
Good.
And he's a good friend, and he always makes time available for us, and we try and have him. He has several books. You have the God's General series.
Yes.
You have the God's Generals for kids.
For kids, this has come out.
I enjoyed
yes.
the haunted house one that you had.
Yeah, I did my teaching books where I do the haunted house book, and then white tongues. White tongues is important to you, and then I wrote one called Breaking Controlling Powers: How to Get Free from the Negative Side of Control.
Yep.
So I've read about 76 books, so I plan to write a couple hundred before I'm gone.
And if you don't know his history, he's a historian of faith. I mean, you're a historian of faith. You have masses of collections of just all the greats of ministries and stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, I was watching on YouTube one of your God's TV? Or
God's General's TV show.
God's General's TV show. And how often do you do those?
We've got a couple years worth. We're still making more of them where we go on location. Like we went to Martin Luther's home in Wittenberg, Germany, and talked about what he did and had the background of all that. So that's kind of fun. So we're still doing more of those.
Yeah, that's good. One of my favorites is the A. Allen.
He's fun.
Yeah.
Brother Allen, yes.
So that was one of our favorites. In fact, you'll see a few of that when you read my book, a little bit of stories in there. I have to reference you on that, though. We're going to do it. But tell us a little bit about what's going on right now. You have the latest release of God's General's Children.
For kids.
Yes.
The latest one that just come out is the books on Amy McPherson, one of the great ladies of Pentecost. And so we wrote her story, which is full of all types of beautiful, Amy's full of drama. Good drama and some bad drama, so it's not a boring book. So we talk about her and her life and her ministry and the level, and the age group for the books is the age of 8 to 13. And so what I decided to do, along with my co-author, Ole Goldberg, that we needed to put some heroes into the children's hands that weren't just evangelical only, but also spirit-filled community. Where people prayed in tongues and they prayed for the sick and they got healed and they prophesied. So that the children could have heroes like that. Yes. I love Corrie ten Boom. Yeah. I love John Wesley, and I think they are heroes. But I want a Catherine Kuhlman and a Wigglesworth, Sister McPherson in their hands too, as a part of the child's view of heroes to be inspired by. So that's why we wrote those books, to inspire them to obey God and to get that into their life while they were little.
Tell us a little bit about McPherson.
Well, Sister McPherson was born in Canada. Her mother was a Salvation Army attendee of one of the churches, and then Amy later married a Salvation Army preacher named Robert Semple, and they began to travel and preach, and then they went as a missionary to Macau Island off of China, where Amy's first husband, Robert, died. So Amy was pregnant with her first child, and her husband died, and so she goes back to Canada thinking her ministry's over, but long story short, she goes into ministry, but nobody knows her, really. So it's one of those things that she wasn't famous, she was an unknown personality, and so she would do things at times like would go in a little small auditorium, probably seeing 300 or 400 in a town, and put an ad in a newspaper, and sometimes somebody would show up, sometimes nobody, but that didn't bother her. She would go at noontime, for example, into the city square where people were going for lunch, and she would do some type of theatrical thing to get people's attention where they would start watching her, and then eventually pull people into the auditorium and start preaching, and that's how she would start her meetings. So she was kind of one of those things, and then she built one of the largest churches in LA. To give some of her storyline is she was the first woman to drive across America in a car. She was the first church in America to have a Christian radio station in the history of America, the third radio station in Los Angeles. She was married 3 times, divorced twice. So that was a little bit of a drama. Yeah. Plus, she was kidnapped at one time in her life.
Yeah,
so that's a little bit of drama.
Reading about that.
Yeah, so you think that's enough, but it's not enough. She actually had a great healing ministry. She had friends with like Charlie Chaplin, some of the movie stars of the time period. And she built a church that was had a tithe of the population of LA. She had 25,000 members in her church when LA was only 250,000 people. So she was a spiritual governor of the city of LA, and she had a tithe of the population as a member of her church. Plus she was divorced. She cut her hair. She wore makeup. She was a Pentecostal, and all of that. So we put that story that God can use anybody, even through your mistakes. He's got a second chance, a third chance, and that God can, He goes beyond church cultural barriers. The Holy Spirit goes where sometimes your tradition says not to. And you have to decide whether you're going to follow the Lord or follow your earthly tradition. And Sister McPherson and the Lord kept breaking traditional barriers to where a lot of us are blessed by that barrier breaking part of our life.
Yeah.
So this book, I think, will inspire the young little girls to have a hero. And maybe if some of them have trouble in their life in the future, they'll remember this little book about this crazy woman preacher who had a broken marriage but still obeyed God, and maybe it'll inspire them to keep going in a tough moment in their future life.
That's just released right now, or how long?
Yeah, it just come out through Bridge Logos, so that's available for people to get. And there'll be 12 in the series of God's Generals for Kids.
How many right now so far?
I think that'll be like number 10. I think there's 2 more to go after that.
Oh, wow.
I think Branham is next and Allen is next.
So how do you break it down to for the kids level to read it?
Well, my co-author works as the #1 children's ministry in the UK.
Yeah, I know Ollie. Ollie's
and,
awesome.
And he's sitting right over there on the side wall there. And but he's the one that writes that because he works in that.
Yeah.
So you have to break it down into the language that they understand, choose the words. Sometimes you have to use a lot of words to explain a thing. And so we do our best. And so far, the children, both in England and in America, are really responding to the books in a good way. Because when you write a book, you don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah, you never do.
You have faith in it and you hope and da-da-da, but then you think, well, they don't like it, they're not going to buy it, they're not going to talk about it. But so far, we're getting good response, and the children are responding. So hopefully the parents will buy more of them for the kids.
I mean,
and
they buy
inspire
video
them.
games that cost $60.
Well, that's true. So this book's only about $12, so they can handle that.
I mean, yeah, what's $12 if they buy games and all the, I mean, I'm one of those parents, so I know.
Right.
So
you have to buy all those expensive gifts.
yeah, those kids, they like those games, but we, I limit them on stuff. But, tell us a little bit what's going on this year for you.
What I'm doing this year is I'm just doing a lot of travel around the world. Next year, I turn 50 years old.
No way.
I'm 49, I'll turn 50. So part of this year.
6 years behind you.
Well, then you can't tell me what's like life to be 50. Because it used to be 50, it used to be way over there. Now it's right here in front of my face. And I'm like.
Do you feel different?
It's a mental thing, I have to tell you. It's like 50, because when I was a kid preacher, 50 was like way over there.
Yeah.
When I finished this last 50, I graduated to heaven.
You started
Yeah, I
earlier.
get 2 lives.
Yeah.
So when I finish this next 50, I don't get another 50. I die.
Yeah.
And I get to go to heaven. So this is it. So I'm trying to make this one count the most and
The best.
learn from my mistakes.
Yeah.
Be stronger, be wiser, and make sure everything count. And try to spend more time with people to put the right seed in them, that it'll grow, so that you'll have fruit that remains like that too.
Absolutely.
So I plan to write a lot of books and spend time with people. My spiritual father made a comment to me years ago, and I watched him do this, and I'm following his example. He'd go preach for 5,000 people in one city, and the next night he'd preach for 100. And I remember I would be on the plane with him sometimes, and it was Lester Summerall. And I said, Brother Summerall, you're getting older. And I said, if you go just to one city, all of us guys would drive in to hear you and drive in to see you. And he kind of got upset with me. He goes, I'm not dead. I said, I didn't say you had to die. I was just trying to make a comment that we'd all come. We'd be happy to drive an hour or do the extra, where you don't have to do that. And he made the comment, he goes, I can help a man more if I'm with him and his family and his church family in his territory, because I can feel it, I can see him, and I can talk to him on his own turf. Because I do more work like that is more beneficial than them seeing me in a little room that we all rented for an afternoon luncheon. And so that's always in my head. So
That's
part of
good
me
advice.
is I'm trying to follow his example the best I can, even in that. And so that's what I'm planning. I'm planning to write 12 little books, and I'm working on 2 new books. One is called It's Never Too Late, ... to be great.
Absolutely.
And I want to talk about in that book, just not Christians, but also business people and politicians and people like, Reagan became the oldest living president. It wasn't too late to be great. Churchill wasn't the great Churchill until he was in his 60s.
Yeah.
And so, Golda Meir, the lady prime minister of Israel, was a grandmother that was brought out of her retirement to become the first lady prime minister. Then I want to talk about the Kentucky Fried Chicken man who retired, the Colonel Sanders, and was in his 60s before he made his great restaurant.
Oh, absolutely.
And so to me, I want to let people know it's never too late to be great.
Absolutely.
So you might be old, and I want to talk about folks who just totally messed up their life, thought it was over, but they started living right and doing right, and then God gave them a second chance. And people, especially the younger generation, they loves authenticity and loves that you made it back.
Absolutely.
And so that's what that book will be about.
Absolutely. That'll be awesome.
So,
Man, thank you so much.
thanks for having me on again, and thank all of you for watching.
Give me your website.
Liardon.com is my website, so you can go there and do that.
We enjoy having you all the time. And well, again, thanks again, brother.
Thank you. Love you all. Have a good day.
And we'll be back with another great guest in just a minute.